My name is Adam Wozney, and I'll be your moderator for today's conversation with these galaxy brains over here. Why'd you laugh? This guy. Well, we are standing at a unique inflection point in economic history. Ooh, I'm excited. Since inception, many have treated AI as a sort of digital librarian. Today, it has become a digital actor. According to McKinsey, everyone's favorite consultancy, agentic commerce, where AI negotiates and transacts anonymously, is now a $5 trillion with a T, dollar opportunity. But an agent can't open traditional bank account or wait 3 days for an ACH transfer to clear. This is why Coinbase and Visa are now reporting a surge in agentic wallets. We are witnessing the birth of machine-to-machine economy powered by programmable money, sick, where the consumer is no longer just a person, but a piece of code. Today, we're gonna be looking at the new economic actors driving this trillion-scale value. But before we get to all that, I wanna introduce our panelists here. First up, we have Andrew Hill, who is just up there. Good job, by the way, Andrew. CEO and co-founder of Recall. Andrew is a PhD scientist turned tech entrepreneur who sits at the intersection of big data and machine learning and decentralized networks. As the CEO of Recall, a platform born from the merger of Textile and 3Box, is that correct? He's currently building a decentralized verifiable AI agents platform designed to solve the trust and discovery issues in modern AI ecosystem. Welcome, Andrew. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I was kind of researching all of you guys before this, and is it fair to say you're a bit of a data visualization nerd?
I have been, yeah. That was older days of mine. I was very into cartography and data visualization for like large-scale biology data sets, actually, was where I started.
Very cool. So yeah, I actually, when I was researching you, I was wondering if you could maybe briefly tell folks about the Mark Twain mapping project that you were working on. I just thought it was really cool. Maybe any fun key learnings you learned from that?
Wait, you're gonna have to remind me. I remember the subject line. It was basically extracting all the locations from his writing and mapping it. Yeah, I was actually just very into this idea in the early 2010s. That there were all these various data sets that had geolocations in them that we hadn't really seen yet. And so I was very into just basically going around the internet and finding those cool data sets. And so I forget there's a Mark Twain, digitization library, and I found all the writing and went through and started mapping that. I'll give you another example that I quite liked. Is there was a data set of of house pets. And so I started going through that and finding the cats that had the most wild lives and creating these sort of local maps of where it would go around its neighborhood. I think it was like Spencer the cat or somebody. I don't know who owned it or whatever, but I made this map that people loved that just showed it like had a very sneaky live with neighbors and things like that. I don't know why that data set was online, but yeah, I loved doing that.
Yeah, you were ahead of the time. I think there's like an Instagram page of people with cameras on their cats, and you can just watch them running around the neighborhood. It's kind of cool. So definitely a trendsetter from back in the day. Next up, we have Molly Mackinlay, CEO of FilOz. I always pronounce that wrong. I apologize. She's currently serving as the CEO of FilOz, a public goods design and development studio focused on the Filecoin network. She has spent the better part of a decade leading engineering, research, and product development at Protocol Labs, where she played a pivotal role in the launch of the Filecoin mainnet and the growth of the IPFS interplanetary file system. Welcome, Molly. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good to see you again.
Very glad to be back.
So the last time we spoke, we talked about how, I think it was like elementary, high school, even college, you were on the robotics team, right?
Was a robotics nerd?
Well, I found out that your parents, I was talking about this earlier, and your brother are actually accomplished technologists themselves. Your parents worked at Xerox in the heyday, brothers at AWS, or not anymore still?
Not anymore. He's been working at Sunrun, I think, which does solar panels as their data visualization and pipelining team. But originally started out in economics, so been awesome to pull my little brother back into the CS world.
Yeah. Well, given this family lore of technologists, I wanted to see if there was any passions you had growing up that were kind of outside of the space you ended up that could have pulled you away from this wonderful world of Web3.
It's an interesting question. So, my field in computer science before finding Web3 was human-computer interaction, which I found because I was taking a debate course and a electronics course, building robots and figuring out how to make them, do all sorts of cool stuff. And my teachers both suggested that I meet with the same person who ended up leading the HCI field, and really seeing one example where they were building social tools for cancer patients to both remind them to take their medication and find community when they were often stuck in hospital rooms, isolated for months at a time. That to me was kind of like my first trigger of like, oh my gosh, there's so much that technology can do to improve the human condition, improve people's lives, be oriented towards the needs of individuals instead of forcing humans to adapt to weird technological interfaces that are hard to understand and maybe lead to bad affordances. So that was kind of like my domain that first took me. And then I was in the education space for a long time, helped build Google Classroom, if anyone has used that, if maybe you're in the younger generation or you have kids that are using Google Classroom these days. And so really loved building things for teachers and students to help them learn faster.
So basically, once a technologist, always a technologist. That's what I'm hearing.
I honestly, once I thought I might want to be a veterinarian, but
that's what I wanted to hear.
I should have been a consumer of Andrew's cat map.
Yeah, you could have worked together. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Molly, for humoring me. Next up, we have Henry Lee, head of ecosystem at Kite AI. Welcome, Henry. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Henry is a technical. Oh, we got that. Turn that on. There we go.
Hello.
There we go.
Oh,
How you
good.
doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Henry Lee is a technical leader and ecosystem builder operating at the intersection of artificial intelligence and Web3 with a background in decentralized AI and robotics. Wow, a lot of robot nerds up here. That's awesome.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
He's currently spearheads ecosystem growth for Kite AI, focusing on integration of AI agents and blockchain technology. Now, you were kind of a last-minute addition to the panel. I think we had someone, their flight was delayed. You know, it's Denver. You never know what's going to happen here. So I really didn't have any time to do any bio. Any interesting tidbits that people should know about you that might surprise people?
Yeah, like when you mentioned robotics, I kind of lit up a little bit because that was my background actually. I got into AI and also crypto in 2017 and 18 because I was doing decentralized AI research, kind of similar to what you were doing when we chatted about it like last year in decentralized optimization at Oxford University. So I was doing that, and then I joined a spin-off from Oxford Robotics Lab as an AI engineer for autonomous vehicles. So I was training models for traffic light detection, obstacle detection, using radar, LiDAR, and stuff like that. And then I started a company, was CTO of a crypto AI company in the last wave 2021, and then was heading Solana for Malaysia, country head of Solana. Did a lot of incubation, traveled a lot of around the world, did of angel investing, and then joined Kite as well because Kite needs an ecosystem and also crypto AI. So.
Yeah. You look like a basketball player. You play basketball? Volleyball. I knew it. I was wrong. Well, thank you for being here, Henry. Next up, we have Ben Fielding, CEO and co-founder of Gensyn. Ben Fielding is a researcher and entrepreneur specializing in the intersection of artificial intelligence and decentralized infrastructure. Wow, mouthful. As the CEO of Gensyn, he leads the development of the protocol designed to democratize AI by creating a global decentralized supercluster of computing power. Welcome, Ben. How are you?
Good, thank you. So,
researching you, Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, was born in Cheshire Village outside of Darnsbury. Is that how I say it?
I have no idea. I don't know what that is.
Lewis Carroll, the writer, the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Are you from Cheshire Village? No?
Close. I'm from kind of that area in the UK, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to play into it, though. If you were hosting a Mad Hatter's Tea Party, get ready for this one, who is the one person from modern times or historically you would want to invite and why?
Ooh, I think maybe to take it out of the kind of tech realm, probably Jane Goodall. I think she would be fascinating to have a discussion like that. I think she'd have a perspective that would be quite different from a lot of other people's. I think as people were talking before, like interests they've had in the past and things, anthropology is something I've spent like a lot of time just being interested in, but never formally having any involvement in whatsoever. So I think there'd be some interesting perspectives that she'd have that'd be different to some of the tech perspectives.
Yeah, very cool. I'm into that. I like Jane Goodall. I think everyone here likes Jane Goodall, right? We're all Jane Goodall fans. Yeah, we got some people clapping for Jane Goodall. And bring her up on stage. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we could talk about bios and this stuff all day, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So I kind of want to like level set to get this conversation going. So to start us off, let's define the stakes. We often hear agentic AI used interchangeably with chatbots. But Gartner forecasts that by the end of this year, 40% of enterprise applications will feature task-specific agents. So my question for you guys is, what is the fundamental technical and economic difference between an AI that assists a human and an AI agent that acts on behalf of one? Maybe we can start with Henry.
No time to think.
Oh, we'll go to Andrew
Yeah,
first.
I mean, no, I can't. Yeah, I'll just wing it. I think that's just the difference between a consultant, right, and an executive, right? I think right now when we look at like Claude or OpenAI, it's inching towards more agency, but it's really more acting like a consultant and assistant, right, to help you say filter out items online if you want to buy something for Christmas, right? And it recommends a lot of shops and bookings and stuff like that. But it doesn't really execute on your behalf. It doesn't make those decisions as well. And I think a big part of that is also because of guardrails. A big part of it is about trust and also about traceability, right? And that's the infrastructure that basically Kite is trying to do, add guardrails and also accountability and identity and reputation systems for agents, right? So that's scalable. So I think it's more about the surrounding tooling that supports the intelligence, right? That unlocks its potential. And I think we're getting there really quick, a lot faster than we thought, yeah.
Yeah, I'd flag, like, at least from my vantage point, how I've been using these systems and what I've seen is there's a difference between you're using this to filter information and perform tasks that you as a human, usually went to a different tool. You went to Google, you went to, read a paper, and you're using that to perform a task faster, but you're still in the driver's seat. You're also usually the human bottleneck who needs to read the output, make the ask, do the next thing. And what I think we're seeing with Claude bots, Molt bots, whatever they're called these days, open bots, open clause, open, all the things, is you're starting to transition more capabilities into the hand of the agent and have longer running time cycles where the agent is performing tasks in an unsupervised environment, not blocking on the human, not only coming back when they need the next step in their process, or they need to hopefully check in with you about some gate of performing an action. I think we're going to see that trend continue very significantly. I think we're on an accelerating pace there in the length of tasks that you can delegate to AIs and the complexity of interactions that they're going to be able to do on humans' behalfs. And I think soon on their own behalfs, where you're going to give them higher and higher order goals, and they're going to then take a whole series of actions in order to achieve those goals, kind of like what Andrew was describing of like having trading bots that have some top level objective and are taking a whole series of subtask actions to try and orient to that outcome. I think one of the key things we need to do in that space is sandbox our agents, give them their own agency over that sub-sandbox space instead of, say, giving it access to all your private keys. Please do not give your OpenClaw? There we go. Your OpenClaw access to all of your private keys. That seems like a bad idea. Give it its own private key. Let it operate and iterate quickly without having to come back and block on you for those actions, but be careful about that boundary and interface. And so I think in that world, we're going to start to see agents coordinating with each other, entire teams and communities of agents with high order goals that they're trying to achieve and subdivide responsibilities within. And that's going to be a really interesting space, but also one that's going to require the right primitives for those agents to interoperate.
Actually, I kind of follow up with what you were saying, and maybe we can go over to Ben on this one, but is there ever going to be a day where you feel completely comfortable giving all of your information, whether it's financial information, health information, whatever, to AI? Do you feel like we'll ever be in a point where we can do that? And what would enable that?
Yeah, I think we absolutely will be, but I think it won't look necessarily like it currently looks. I think there's essentially what's happening with the agentic wave is just an expansion of environment that these systems operate within. And because the general purpose nature of machine learning, we don't actually know how wide that environment can expand yet. So that's why things like OpenClaw, people are just like, oh my God, I can throw more at it and see what it can do. And we just kind of throw as much as we can at it. But I think there'll be a contraction back down, probably for security and privacy reasons, where we sort of figure out where the guardrails of that are, and then we start operating within it. But I think the agentic part, as it is like mimetic in the world, where we think of them as these sort of like almost like pseudo humans, will actually fall away. Personally, this might be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I think actually it'll just get absorbed into the UX of products that we use. And so in the future, when we say, oh, will we hand all of our data to agents? Yes, we will, in my opinion, but it will look like we currently have, where we hand all of our data to like digital systems anyway. Like we already do that. And so the difference here is just that these systems are more powerful. They can operate within wider environments that link different kind of existing environments together as they stand right now. But the future actually looks very similar to how it looks now, which is all of our data is on all of these systems provided by these companies anyway. It's just in the future, the tech is going to be better and the UX is going to get better. And I think this idea that we sort of like instruct this minion in like natural language to go and do these things. To be honest, a lot of that, in my opinion, will fade away and it'll just be replaced by much, much better UX rather than natural language. But maybe not.
It's like in the future, there's no distinction between an AI app and an app. It's just apps, right?
Exactly.
And
It's just
data.
better tech.
Yeah.
Every app will be an AI app because it's a better way of doing things. Yeah.
What's the question for me now?
Maybe just your thoughts to what these folks were just talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to balance it in my own head. I've been like a dangerously with permissions maxi for the longest time. I'm the sort of person who's like, if it's not coding in my backpack while I'm not at the terminal, it's wasting my time. But I'm with these folks that things are going to change. I think there's something. I think we've all been aware of it for a year, 2 years. The whole like privacy and trust conversation, and how a lot of people, if this had been an audience 3 years ago, a lot of people would have been here because of the trust and like sovereignty conversation in Web3. And I think a lot of that actually was at least temporarily negated by these large centralized models basically consuming everything, but being so valuable in our day-to-day life that we just go kind of wing it. And we're like, okay, I'll give it my medical records. Like, who hasn't? I bet the number of people here that haven't gone to a doctor's visit or something like that and then come back and chatted with one of these things to figure out what the doctor couldn't tell you is pretty high. Like, I don't know which I said it, but there's a lot of people that have done that. I think actually the OpenClaw introduction is pretty interesting to me and more profound than people like on a surface level quite recognize. Not only for the like long-running nature and the amount that people are kind of throwing at it and its own self-upgradability and all those things. I think those are all really interesting. Another component of it is just how many people are racing out there to get a Mac Mini or Mac Studio to run it in their own apartment. And that is a narrative that we've had for a few years of how it could come back. And the number of people that you hear telling stories of, well, I'm putting it in a Mac Studio so I can run Kimi K2 locally and not ship that stuff to the centralized provider when I don't need to. That's early days, but maybe a very interesting conversation because we know the models are getting more efficient. We know that the hardware is getting more robust, and we know that these solutions are now getting easier to do. So like anybody can come along and throw it on a Docker instance on a Mac that's pretty self-contained and has access to all these things locally. That's pretty exciting, and I hope it continues.
So I want to you're just talking about how everyone's out there buying Mac Mini. So I want to talk about commerce, the agentic commerce, where agents actually negotiate with other agents. So as well, each of these new economic actors, how does the concept of a customer journey change when the customer is a piece of software optimizing for a budget rather than a human responding to an ad? Oh, please.
This is a topic quite close to my heart because I actually I really hate spending a lot of time shopping online. And my problem is that I'm an engineer and I try to optimize cost, and I spend 3 hours trying to save $5, whereas my time was way more than $5, right? So I think it's a problem of, if you look at the future of work, right? It's probably going to be the case that our time is going to be more important because time is something that is not a renewable resource, right? Once it's gone, it's gone. And I think that's where agents really add a lot of value in not just commerce, but everything else. But speaking about commerce, I don't think it's just about cost optimization, right? Because I recently just tried to find a ring that is made out of a very special type of metal. titanium alloy grade 4 and high carbon steel because I want to use it to make sparks for a flint and steel fire making method. I'm weird. And
I dig it.
yeah, so it's extremely niche, must be custom made, and it also needs to be made according to like the design and specifications that I want, right? And cost as well is also a concern. Shipping options, logistics and all that, right? Put all that into an AI, LLM, and it even comes up with like a design of the picture, right, that you want, and also sources, like who is most probable in which country, and also in which budget and material places, right, that would fulfill this need. And I was amazed by that, right? Because that's not even just design and also specification, right? But that's even supply chain and logistics planning as well, right? So if you actually wanted to start a company that did freaking weird niche like rings that starts fires and sparks, right? You can actually start, ideating with an AI, right? And I think basically I would summarize that as like infinite UI UX, because right now in Amazon, right, you can't just toggle like. You can toggle like for price and shipping, but you can't toggle like these weird stuff, right? What material is it made of, right? Where does it come from, right? But the LM breaks down UI UX into infinite possibilities, right? Which I think basically unlocks the long tail of what you can do in commerce, which is what Amazon did because they don't need physical shelves anymore. So they can support like these long tail weird stuff that anybody can find a niche in a place in the internet, right? And it's all in a warehouse, right? So, because in the past, right, stores are limited by physical space, so they need to maximize for the short tail only volume, right? So I think basically agents in agentic commerce, right, will be like phase 2 of the long tail of the internet, and Amazon was like phase 1. Yeah, that's how I summarize it.
Yeah, I think this is a great example, which is like we are already seeing a significant trend of people using agents for search queries to do research, much deeper research than you could do with like keyword level search inside of Google or Amazon. And so that brings like this thing of like, don't worry, the agent's just going to optimize for your budget. Absolutely not. They're totally susceptible to advertising and narrative in the same way humans are. We trained them on reinforcement learning and like human reinforcement. They're doing a lot of that same parsing. So I think there's a bit of a kind of like expectation there that agents are going to be like hyper-logical computers because they, are not human or not running on wetware. I don't think that's actually the case. I think we are seeing a whole generation now starting to think about how do you do SEO for agents instead of SEO for Google and Amazon search queries. And I think that's actually a very strategic thing that many folks in this room need to get really good at. If we want agents to be building the future of applications and agentic commerce on top of Web3 rails, we need to get really good at making our documentation accessible to agents, at making our case studies and our benchmarks. We have a bit of a leg up here in the Web3 space because we've already been open API first in a way that a lot of other groups have been like, please go talk to my sales agent, get on a phone call. You know how annoying it is for an agent to get on a phone call? It has to like get a voice and get a phone number and like impersonate someone. It's like pretty annoying, but it's amazing if you can do that entirely autonomously by just calling a well-documented API off of an MD file. So I think that's a great opportunity for the entire Web3 space to market to agents and actually be the easiest path of adoption in ways that previously it was really hard for humans to adopt some of these Web3 tools, whether that's Web3 storage, Web3 infrastructure, or Web3 kind of like data pipelines. Now that's actually the easiest choice for AI agents because it's well documented, it has clear upfront pricing, you have verification on the flip side of like you're only paying for what you want instead of you have to go talk to some sales agent somewhere and try to negotiate a legal contract with someone with some human identity that you may or may not have as an agent. So I think that's actually a really, really cool opportunity for this space in particular in the way I think the agent economy is going to move.
I probably think about this split like relatively clearly into two topics. There's the like human kind of agentic commerce world, and then there's the entirely sovereign like agentic commerce world. And so if I start with like the human world, we're used to operating within the attention economy. So this idea where companies are able to learn enormous amounts of things about us at the cohort level, bucket us into cohorts, and then just blast adverts at us. And the reason they do that is to seed our mind lines with these like products, these things that they want us to buy, so that when it comes to the time to purchase, we are kind of already seeded with their product. So the idea that if you are bucketed in a cohort that might be likely to buy a car sometime soon, and maybe you're interested in SUVs, you're going to get blasted with adverts for SUVs until the end of time. And at some point, when you want to buy an SUV, you're going to remember, subliminally probably, one of those SUVs, and we're going to make that purchase. As a consumer, that's really annoying. It's like a horrible way of it working, but it's effective because it shifts the burden of machine learning to the companies doing that advertising, basically, and the companies gathering our data, et cetera, et cetera. There's a different way of doing this, which has been theorized about for a long time, but we haven't been able to do it, called the intention economy. And there's writing on it. If you kind of look at a book called The Intention Economy, there's a project at Harvard called Project VRM. There's a bunch of stuff, super academic, very theoretical, absolutely not the right way to do things necessarily, but interesting theoretically. And this basically describes this world where instead of us being blasted with adverts and then when we make a purchase decision just picking one of those things off the shelf, we actually do that learning process at the human side. And so each individual is building up that bank of information about them. And then when it comes time to make a purchase, you basically just put that out there and you say, hey, every car company in the world, I'm ready to buy an SUV now. Here's all the information about me, like pitch me. And then you get the adverts. And that theoretically is a much better way of doing that sales process for the individual and for the company. We haven't had the technical rails to do it. I think with this tech, with the kind of agentic economy, we actually can do that because we can move that learning process to the individual by our interactions with these systems. So these systems start to learn much more about us individually. When it comes time to purchase, I just ask that system, I say, hey, everything you know about me, just take that to those car companies and like find the best car for me. And then there's a negotiation process that can happen, etc. And I am buying with intent rather than by being blasted with every single advert imaginable up until the time of purchase. So that's the like kind of human world. I think that can happen. I still think it's going to be a while before we can like properly run that, but I think we're actually in the shift from attention economy to intention economy. When it comes to agents themselves, I think there's an entire sovereign economy for individual machine learning models, which doesn't even need to touch humans. And I won't touch on this too much because I've already been talking for a while, but I think that comes into information. So what do individual agents actually have to trade on their own? The only thing they have to trade realistically is information. It's like alpha about things that are happening in the world. And they can gather that from many different places, but then they need to trade it. And the way that they'll trade it is basically in the traditional financial markets. That information has value if you trade stocks, etc. But you need a new UX for that market. You can't have an agent go and trade on like the New York Stock Exchange right now. Maybe kind of we put the rails in so that they can do it, but right now it's very difficult. They can't construct complex baskets of options and derivatives and things like that. So how do they do it? In our opinion, they trade in prediction markets. And prediction markets then just become a UX over the top of the financial markets. If you construct a prediction market about any one topic, you can actually hedge that market behind the scenes with structured options and things like that. And so I think there's an entire world outside of that human world, commerce world, of agents actually just trading information in exchange for resources like compute, et cetera, that they need to live. And that's an entirely like sovereign piece, which is probably longer term, but is only possible with crypto rails, basically. Like the first piece, you can do that. You can do it on centralized rails. That second piece, you can't do that. You need decentralized tech to do that.
I don't have anything to add to that. That was great. Yeah.
You're like, perfect, nailed it.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to find a really good question for you guys. And I think you actually talked about guardrails earlier, so I thought that would actually be useful, and you guys have something interesting to say. So in a recent report, 19%, I don't know where this report is, so who knows how accurate this is. In a recent report, 19% of IT leaders currently report high trust in preventing agentic hallucinations. In a trillion-scale economy, errors aren't just bugs, but they are systematic financial risks. What are the non-negotiable guardrails that must be in place before an enterprise gives an agent the keys to the kingdom? We have about 6 minutes left, so we'll see if we can get you all in on this one.
Speed run it?
Yeah, we'll speed run it.
Speed run it. Okay, what do big enterprises need in order to fully trust agents, right? Reflect critical systems, right? I think that the first thing is accountability and attribution, right? You need to first know who is at fault and what system is at fault, and how do you debug it, right? The stack trace, essentially. That doesn't really exist now, I think, from as big as an organization, right? Tracking every logic step. Accountability then basically gives rise to a floor in the risk, which is like insurance, right? Once you have attribution, then you can have the ability to underwrite the risk based on that attribution, those metrics, right? Just like how an insurance company would underwrite risk based on your health metrics or your blood pressure and stuff like that. And then an industry would spring up to basically tweak the risk to reward ratio such that it's beneficial for organizations to adopt like critical systems, right, for agents. So I just basically think it's attribution and then like a risk reward through insurance.
Nice. Yeah, I'd agree with the first one. I'd call it auditability. So, if you're getting these, giving a lot more permissions and a lot more agency to these kind of like autonomous agents, you want to be able to see what they're doing. You want to be able to see in what scope, and you want to be able to like in real time monitor them for kind of like behavior that falls outside the bounds of what you're looking for. The other thing I would flag, as an organizational leader, is you probably want to subdivide your scope and put some basic checks and balances in place where you're having groups cross audit their activity. So, you have your CEO agent, which has one scope of access. You have your, software engineering agents. You maybe have your budgeting agent that is tracking your P&L. And these are holding each other accountable to stay, keep driving the ship in kind of an aligned direction. And so I think, both having really good audit chains and having agents that are kind of like cross-auditing each other will then give you a system that over time can become more robust and reliable instead of like degrading into chaos or ending up spending all of your money in ways that are misaligned from your ultimate goals. So those would be my two.
I was just thinking about an HR agent talking to two different agents on legal and on marketing and having to help them go through a complex decision. Anyways, I don't know what I was thinking about.
No,
Please,
I think
Ben.
entirely agentic corporations are going to exist for sure.
I agree with the auditability and the scope points. I think at the lowest level, you need just reproducibility and determinism in the computations so that you can build any of those auditable systems. I think we'll end up with a similar thing that we have in the blockchain space, where you end up with optimistic proofs built on top of the ability right down at the bottom to just run something multiple times and just see if it's the same. You don't necessarily always want to do that, but if you don't have the ability to actually inspect a computation after it's been run and know that if you ran it again it would be identical, you don't have anything. You've got something built on foundations of sand. So ultimately, underneath all of this, we do need technical primitives that allow you to just execute something twice and see if it's the same. Then you can build these higher level systems which say, hey, can I actually inspect it when I need to, etc.
I will say maybe another flag just to add was kind of based on that. If you do give the keys to the kingdom to a set of agents and you're expecting them to run a company on your behalf, you better hope that you haven't put in a bunch of centralized primitives that might break or fall apart under various different attack surfaces. We're like, great, well, we are running our company based on agents on AWS, and hopefully AWS doesn't shut off our APIs, otherwise we're locked out of our entire corporate back office.
Yeah, again, everybody else said it very well. I agree with all that. I would say just kind of backing up, I think there's a very small minority of people that are ready to do anything close to that. And I would say there's two pieces of evidence where I'm always surprised. So OpenClaw, I guess, is a good surprise one. I'd be really curious what percentage of people installed it right on their personal computer the first time they installed it, without thinking first on how to kind of ramp it up to more and more trust after observing it with all these in mind. The other place I see it all the time is in coding. I guess one way to put it is if you want to build a boat to sail out on the ocean, you don't start with a sieve and figure out where the holes are. You kind of start by trying to figure out where all the boundaries are that are going to let water in. And I see people kind of kick off new coding projects all the time with the sieve and then going great, I'll have AI code it and hopefully it's going to look good in the end. And you're like, no, it's never going to look good in the end. That's not how it works. And so I just think it'll be really interesting over the next year or two, especially as tools like OpenClaw get better, or even Codex and Claude Code get better, and more kind of prolific and longer horizons and things like that. Just getting that kind of lexicon and that muscle more ingrained in the people that are using it to actually give more and more the keys. How do you give it strict boundaries so that you can only let it do to the point that you trust it, and then you have deterministic flows every place else. that actually catch it and stop it from doing the things that you don't trust it for yet.
Awesome. Well, I could talk to you Galaxy Brains all day. I really enjoyed this. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists here today, guys?